Just a quick note before we begin. Don't use iStock. Alright, let's get started with the incredible story of the Pantheon. The genius of the Pantheon lies in its design. Everything about it makes you look upward. Michelangelo once said it looked as though it had been built by angels. Its proportions are extraordinary. Take the dome, for example. It weighs more than 5,000 tons, which is 30 times heavier than the Statue of Liberty. With a diameter of 43 meters, it's twice as wide as the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, and it still holds the record as the largest dome of the ancient world. But how did the Romans manage to build something so huge with technology available 2,000 years ago? For the first time in history, they challenged the laws of gravity with a massive dome that was open to the sky. This came with great risks. The dome could collapse, the walls could give way, or the entire building might sink into the marshy ground. What's even more fascinating is that the Pantheon stands without any external supports. The secret lies in its structure, a honeycomb-like system of arches and cavities that both lightens the weight and distributes the pressure evenly. The precision was so exact that even the tiniest mistake could have brought the whole building down. The Pantheon's 16 towering columns came from Egypt, each weighing about 70 tons, yet not a single one was cut from the same granite. That wasn't an accident. It was intentional. In fact, the Pantheon is full of little misleading details, almost like puzzles left for future generations. Today, the Pantheon is the best preserved monument of ancient Rome. Built so well that after 2 millennia, it still stands almost entirely intact. With around 9 million visitors each year, it's one of Italy's most beloved landmarks. If we were to rewrite the list of the 7 wonders of the world, the Pantheon would surely deserve a spot. Standing in front of it, the sheer size alone takes your breath away. Its columns rise 14 meters high, its bronze doors are 2,000 years old, and once you step inside, the open space beneath the dome instantly overwhelms you. At 43 meters high, the same as a 15-story building, the dome seems to float in the air without any columns holding it up. It's pure architectural magic. The story of the Pantheon begins around 25 BC, during the reign of Emperor Augustus, when his trusted general Agrippa oversaw the transformation of Rome. Vast, swampy fields were turned into imperial spaces. Public baths appeared for the first time, and it was decided that a temple unlike any other would be built, the Pantheon. What made it revolutionary was that ordinary people were allowed inside. Traditionally, temples were sacred spaces closed off to the public. But here, Romans could step beyond the grand portico and worship the gods inside a monumental open space. The challenges were enormous. The ground was unstable, clay soil that swelled when wet and sank when dry. To solve this, Roman engineers dug a massive trench 7 meters deep and 4.5 meters wide, filled it with layers of Roman concrete, and reinforced it with wooden frames. This special volcanic concrete, called opus cementitium, was stronger with age and became one of Rome's greatest building secrets. Then came the columns. Each one, weighing more than an Airbus A380 jet, was carved in Egypt's famous granite quarries in Aswan and Mons Claudianus, over 2,000 kilometers away. Unlike other temples where columns were made in pieces, Augustus demanded they be carved from single blocks, a nearly impossible task. It took years to cut them, and even more years to transport them. The process was grueling. Workers dug trenches around massive stone blocks, drove iron wedges into the cracks, and carefully freed each column from the earth. One mistake, one crack, and months of work were wasted, as seen in the famous unfinished obelisk still lying in Aswan. Once freed, these colossal stones had to be hauled overland, rolled on wooden logs, then floated down the Nile on huge flat-bottomed barges designed to carry the weight, ancient versions of today's cargo ships. From there, they were shipped across the Mediterranean and finally dragged into Rome, where they were erected to form the Pantheon's grand entrance. The Pantheon remains a marvel of engineering and design, a timeless monument that shows just how ambitious, skilled and visionary the Romans truly were. Once the columns were carefully carved and polished, they were ready to be installed. But then came the big question: How could just a handful of men lift stone blocks several meters tall, some weighing up to a ton? The most effective technique was surprisingly clever. They cut a narrow groove about 3 centimeters wide at the block's center of gravity. Into this groove they inserted 2 slanted iron pieces and then a third one in the middle fitted with a ring. The 3 parts locked together so tightly that the stone couldn't move at all. A simple hook could then be attached to lift the block. Of course, this method only worked with very strong stone, like high-quality limestone. With weaker stone, the whole block risked shattering under pressure. But once in place, this system allowed builders to raise enormous blocks into position. The lifting systems used by Roman engineers 2,000 years ago were nothing short of miraculous. They relied on huge wooden masts, sometimes 10 meters tall, anchored firmly into the ground. 4 posts supported the mast, forming a frame, and ropes ran through pulleys at both the top and bottom. By pulling on these ropes, workers could multiply their strength. The more pulleys you added, the greater the force. Thanks to this invention, even a single man could lift a 200-kilo block more than 4 meters high, but when it came to the Pantheon's 16 giant columns, each 14 meters tall, the challenge was far more complicated. Imagine trying to stand them upright, one beside the other, without knocking them over like dominoes. The columns were packed so closely that a single mistake could have brought them all crashing down. In the 1500s, it took 900 men to raise an obelisk in St. Peter's Square. So how did the Romans 1500 years earlier manage to lift 16 enormous columns, using nothing but ropes, muscle power and simple cranes? Even today it's a mystery. And as if that weren't enough, the ground itself caused new problems. During construction, cracks began to form because the soil wasn't stable. The builders had to dig a second trench around the original foundations, then bind the two together with brickwork, creating a reinforced circular base 10 meters thick and more than 4 meters deep. In modern terms, the foundation of the Pantheon is the equivalent of sinking 2 submarines, each 100 meters long, beneath the piazza. The Romans didn't fully understand the limits of materials, so they always built on the safe side, over-engineering everything. That caution paid off. The building is still standing. As the columns of the portico rose, workers were already stacking massive stone blocks to form the rotunda, the huge circular hall at the heart of the Pantheon. The scale was, honestly, unprecedented. The plan was for the dome to span 43 meters across, the largest ever built in the ancient world, with no central keystone at the top. Instead, sunlight would stream in through a circular opening 9 meters wide, the famous oculus, designed to dazzle visitors and make them feel the raw power of gravity and space. This was an audacious experiment, pushing the boundaries of engineering and even the laws of nature. Nobody knew for sure if it would hold, or if the entire project might come crashing down.